Back in 1995, Lamborghini showed off a cool new car at the Geneva Motor Show. It was called the Kala, and it got everyone talking. This wasn't just any car. It was meant to replace the Lamborghini Halpa, which they had stopped making in 1988. The idea was to make a Lamborghini that more people could afford, while still keeping that special Lamborghini magic. The brains behind the Kala was Italdesign Giugiaro, a famous Italian design company. They gave it a powerful 4.0-liter V10 engine that could pump out 400 horsepower. This engine was paired with a 6-speed manual gearbox that sent all that power to the rear wheels. To keep the car light and quick, they used a carbon fiber body and an aluminum frame. All of this meant the Kala weighed just 2,844 pounds. Looking at the Kala, you could see bits of other famous Lamborghinis. The headlights looked a bit like the Miuras, while the windshield reminded people of the Countach. But the Kala was designed to be easier to live with day to day. It had more room inside for the driver and passengers, and even a small back seat for extra space. But the Kala wasn't just about looks. It was built to go fast. It could hit a top speed of 181 miles per hour and zoom from 0 to 60 miles per hour in less than 5 seconds. The engine was put in the middle of the car, which helped it stay balanced and handle well on twisty roads. With its manual transmission, drivers could really feel connected to the car as they shifted gears. The use of carbon fiber and aluminum wasn't just to make the car look cool. These materials are strong but light, which helped the Kala perform better. The stiff aluminum frame gave the car a solid base, while the carbon fiber body kept the weight down without making the car weak. This mix of new materials and powerful performance made the Kala stand out, showing off what Lamborghini could do. Even though you couldn't buy a Kala, its ideas lived on in the Lamborghini Gallardo. Launched in 2003, the Gallardo took a lot of what made the Kala special and turned it into a real car you could drive. The Gallardo became one of Lamborghini's best-selling cars ever, partly because of the groundwork laid by the Kala. The Kala also found fame in the world of video games. It was a star car in the 1997 game Need for Speed 2, where players could race it on virtual tracks. This helped make the Kala famous even though it never hit real roads. Being in such a popular game let fans feel like they were driving a Lamborghini, adding to the excitement around the brand. The Lamborghini Kala is an interesting part of Lamborghini's story. It came about during a time when the company was going through big changes, but it still showed off what Lamborghini could do. While you couldn't buy one, the Kala's influence can be seen in the success of the Gallardo and in Lamborghini's ongoing push to make amazing cars. The Kala reminds us of the creativity of Italdesign Giugiaro and Lamborghini's long history of making incredible sports cars that people dream about. The Volkswagen W12 Concept car, also known as the W12 Synchro or W12 Nardo. This car is a fascinating but often forgotten part of Volkswagen's history. Volkswagen first showed it to the public at the 1997 Tokyo Motor Show, aiming to break into the supercar market dominated by famous brands like Ferrari, Lamborghini. Volkswagen wanted to show off what they could do and push car design to new limits. They brought in Giorgetto Giugiaro, a famous car designer from Italdesign, to work on the W12 project. Giugiaro made the car look sleek and futuristic, with a low and wide body that looked fast even when not moving. Under the hood, the W12 had a really special engine. Volkswagen engineers combined two VR6 engines to make a W12 engine. This was new and different because it allowed for a small engine that could produce a lot of power. The VR6 engines were known for their narrow V shape, which made it possible to put them together in this way. This engine setup gave the car lots of power while keeping it light, which is really important for fast cars. Volkswagen worked hard on testing and improving the W12. They used advanced materials and technologies to make sure it could handle being a high-speed supercar. They focused on making the car cut through the air easily, spread its weight evenly, and keep the engine cool. The engineers worked closely with Italdesign to make sure the car not only looked good, but also performed really well on the track. The W12 was packed with cool features. Its engine could produce up to 420 horsepower in the first version, with later models getting even more powerful. This allowed the car to go really fast and speed up quickly. For example, it could go from 0 to 62 miles per hour in about 3.5 seconds, which is super fast. The design of the W12 was another big deal. It had a lot of glass, especially in the roof and windshield, which made it look futuristic and gave the driver a great view. Inside, it was both practical and luxurious, with high-quality materials and advanced technology for its time. One of the cool tech features in the W12 was the Synchro all-wheel drive system, which later became known as 4Motion. This system helped the car grip the road better and handle well, making it more stable at high speeds and improving how it drove overall. The W12 Concept had a few different versions. The first one, called the W12 Synchro, came out in 1997. In 1998, Volkswagen showed off the W12 Roadster at the Geneva Motor Show. This version didn't have a roof, which made driving it feel different and exciting. Then, the most famous version was the W12 Nardo, introduced in 2001. It was named after a famous test track in Italy called the Nardo Ring. This version had an even more powerful 6.0-liter engine that produced 591 horsepower. It was made for high-speed endurance testing and set several world records. And speaking of records, the W12 Nardo did something really impressive on February 23, 2002. At the Nardo Ring in Italy, it drove more than 4,800 miles in 24 hours, averaging a speed of 200.6 miles per hour. This showed that the car was not only fast, but also tough enough to keep going for a long time at high speeds. These achievements weren't just about setting records. They showed that Volkswagen could make a car that could compete with the best supercars out there. The W12 got a lot of attention at car shows and from car experts, which helped build Volkswagen's reputation for making high-performance cars. Even though the W12 did all these cool things, it never became a real car that people could buy. There were a few reasons for this. The supercar market was very competitive, and people mostly knew Volkswagen for making practical, reliable cars, not supercars. Also around that time, many other car companies were releasing new supercars, which made it hard for the W12 to stand out. But the W12 Concept still left a big mark on the car world. It showed that Volkswagen could come up with new ideas and push the limits of car design and engineering. The W12 engine design was especially important and influenced future engines. This engine design was later used in expensive cars made by Audi, Bentley, and Bugatti, which shows how important the W12 project was. The W12 also became popular in another way, through video games. It appeared in racing games like Gran Turismo and Project Gotham Racing. This let car fans experience driving this supercar in the virtual world, even though they couldn't drive it in real life. The PUO Proxima, a concept car that turned heads at the 1986 Paris Motor Show. This car wasn't just another pretty face. It was Peugeot's way of showing off what they thought cars might look like in the future. They even named it after Proxima Centauri, the star closest to our sun, to really drive home that futuristic feel. The Proxima's design was something else. Gerhard Welter, the guy behind its look, wanted to create a car that was both powerful and eye-catching. He gave it a long wheelbase and kept the front and back ends short, which made it look fast, even when it was standing still. The body was made of Kevlar, a super strong material often used in things like bulletproof vests and spacesuits. This wasn't just for show, it made the car tough and light, which is great for going fast. One of the coolest parts of the Proxima was its big fin on the back. This wasn't just there to look cool, although it did. It helped the car cut through the air better. On either side of this fin were solar panels, which powered the car's air conditioning. Talk about thinking ahead. Getting into the Proxima was like something out of a sci-fi movie. The roof was split into two parts. The front part would swing forward, and the back part would slide backward. This made it easy to get in and out, and it looked really cool too. Inside the car, things got even more interesting. Paul Bracq designed the inside, which was bright red and could fit 4 people. It was a mix of old-school craftsmanship, like handmade leather, and high-tech gadgets. There were color screens everywhere, which was a big deal back in the 1980s when most people were still using black and white TVs. The Proxima had 2 onboard computers and 5 color screens. These weren't just for show. They were hooked up to cameras and a radar system that helped prevent crashes. The car even had an early version of GPS, which was mind-blowing for the time. Instead of a regular key, it used an electronic card to start the car. Now let's talk about what made the Proxima move. It had a big 2.8-liter V6 engine right in the middle of the car. This engine had 2 turbochargers and could pump out about 600 horsepower. That's enough power to push the car to speeds of up to 216 miles per hour. The engine had special ceramic-coated parts to help it run smoothly at high speeds. The Proxima also had a clever 4-wheel drive system. If the car started to slip, it would automatically send power to the front wheels to help keep control. The gears and clutch were controlled by computers, making for a smooth ride. Even though the Proxima never made it to car showrooms, it left a big mark on the car world. Many of its features, like the rear-view cameras and satellite navigation, are now common in everyday cars. It showed that Peugeot wasn't afraid to think big and try new things. The 1976 Ferrari Rainbow, also called the Ferrari 308 GT Rainbow, was a special one-of-a-kind car that turned heads when it was shown at the Turin Motor Show in 1976. It was created by the famous Italian design company Bertoni, with Marcello Gandini leading the project. The Rainbow's shape was very different from other cars at the time. It had a wedge-like body that wasn't just for looks. It helped the car cut through the air better, making it faster and use less fuel. This pointy style became popular in the 1970s, with other fast cars like the Lamborghini Countach using similar shapes. The Rainbow's sharp angles and flat surfaces were really ahead of their time and influenced many future sports cars. One of the coolest things about the Rainbow was its roof. It could be taken off to turn the car from a closed coupe into an open-top convertible. But it wasn't as easy as pressing a button like in modern cars. The driver had to manually remove the roof and store it behind the back seats. The roof would turn 90 degrees before fitting into its storage spot. This was a really new idea back then and showed how forward-thinking the designers were. The car was painted white with black stripes, which made its modern shape stand out even more. At the back, it had box-shaped lights connected by a thin, reflective strip. These lights didn't just help other drivers see the car, they also made it look even more futuristic. The back of the car also had extra cooling slots to keep the engine from getting too hot during fast drives. Every part of the Rainbow's design was carefully thought out to look good and work well. Inside the Rainbow, things were kept simple but stylish. The seats were covered in black leather with white stripes, which looked sporty and fancy at the same time. The floor had beige carpet to make it feel a bit more luxurious. The dashboard was the same color as the outside of the car and had all the important gauges and controls. This simple design was common in sports cars back then. They focused more on driving and less on extra features. All the switches and buttons were placed in the middle of the dashboard where the driver could easily reach them. The steering wheel was a normal 3-spoke design wrapped in black leather, which felt good to hold. All the gauges and controls were put where the driver could see them easily without looking away from the road. This focus on making the car easy and fun to drive was a big part of how Ferrari designed their cars. Under the hood, the Rainbow had a powerful V8 engine placed in the middle of the car. It was 3.0 liters in size and used carburetors to mix fuel and air. This engine could make about 255 horsepower, which was a lot for a car in the 1970s. It was connected to a 5-speed manual gearbox, so the driver had to shift gears themselves. Having the engine in the middle of the car helped it handle better on twisty roads. The mix of power and good handling made the Rainbow really fun to drive. The engine came from the Ferrari 308 GTB/GT4 and was known for working well and being reliable. It had some advanced features for its time, like 2 camshafts on top of the engine and belts to control the valves. It also had 4 Weber carburetors. All these parts working together let the engine make its peak power at 7,700 revolutions per minute and its highest torque of 210 pound-feet at 5,000 revolutions per minute. This was impressive performance for a 1970s car and showed how good Ferrari was at making engines. The Rainbow wasn't just a cool-looking car. It was a way for Ferrari and Bertone to show what they could do when given free rein to create. The car's wild design and new ideas showed how clever Marcello Gandini and the Bertone team were. While they never planned to make many Rainbows, it had a big impact on how cars were designed afterward. It pushed the limits of what people thought a sports car should look like and introduced features that would become common in later cars. Even though the Rainbow was so different, it was the last time Ferrari worked with Bertone. After this, Ferrari started working more with another design company called Pininfarina. Pininfarina's designs fit better with what people expected Ferraris to look like, with smoother curves and elegant lines. But you can still see some of the Rainbow's influence in modern sports cars. Its angular shape, removable roof, and simple interior set new trends that car designers still follow today.